Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought we'd do a bit of a rating video, but rather than rating individual units like we normally do, I thought we're going to rate the 6 Necron Dynasties, put them in a tier list to see how they compare. Before we start, the shout out today goes to Nerd Workshop for their comment on the latest Necron video, so shout out to you. Now as for today's video, I'm not going to be adding the custom dynasties within the comparisons, but they will get a lot of mentions throughout the video as a lot of the dynasties relate to some of the custom codes or they're a direct competition to some of them. So I'm going to be going in the order that they're written in the Codex, so starting off with the Mephrit Dynasty. So a quick summary, the code grants all of our ranged weaponry an additional 3-inch range, all except pistols of course, which makes that Hexmark Destroyer not so good as a selection. Not many select him anyway. The 3-inch extra range is not only good for range, it's also good for firing rapid fire weapons, because it's given a slightly long half range to fire in double shots. It's particularly good for our short range weapons such as Ghost Reapers, now at 15-inch range, which means it won't get caught out so easily on an enemy charge when they want to fire. To add to the code, if you fire within half range, you're going to have an additional -1 AP added to the weapons. And that isn't just rapid fire weapons, that's all weapons. Again, using those Ghost Reapers as an example, they're now -3 AP if you shoot within half range. And again, that 3-inch extra range makes it easier to achieve. So this code competes with Healthy Paranoia, which is from the custom codes for that 3-inch additional range. But to be honest, both parts of this code are pretty good and work hand in hand, so throwing away the relic, the warlord trait and the stratagem isn't really needed. So as for those extras, the warlord trait is a weird one, giving the warlord an additional point in strength and an extra attack. So this obviously doesn't complement a ranged army, however in terms of melee, it does allow for your war scythes to be strength 8 on your overlord models, which is kind of nice. But it feels like it should have been a Novokh warlord trait really. The relic I personally love is for your royal warden, which synergizes with the shooting Necrons, because he's going to get the conduit of stars. So that 36-inch range becomes 39-inch range with the code, and firing within 20 inches is 6 shots instead of 3, and becomes a -3 AP weapon. Now whenever I play the Mephrit Dynasty, I always spend an extra command point just to buy this relic for my royal warden. The stratagem, Talent for Annihilation, costs 1 command point and makes all wound rolls over 6 create a mortal wound. This is capped at 3, but you're rarely going to get more than 3 with a given unit. This one's nice on warriors and tomb blades in particular, as they can max out 3 mortal wounds. So overall, like the dynasty, now I tend to play Sautekh, but quite often I find myself switching out for the Mephrit code, just because it's a fantastic dynasty for our ranged Necrons. So for the rating for the Mephrit dynasty, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5 stars. Next is the Nephrekh Dynasty. Now we've only recently did the tactics video for this dynasty and I was quite underwhelmed if I'm honest. So the code grants everything with the dynasty keyword a 6+ invulnerable save, which is okay, but it means you're better playing a high model count to make use of that 6+ roll. Now it is redundant with a lot of units though. A lot of our vehicles have quantum shielding, so already have a 5+ invulnerable save. Wraiths, who were the better units for this code in past editions, also got their own 4+ invulnerable save, so again the save is redundant there. Then most of the characters have the Phase Shifter invulnerable save, and the Doomstalker as well is another one that has a containment field. So the use of that part of the code is quite restricted overall. You're also competing with Unyielding from the custom code to get the invuln save, and you can pair this with a much better option. Now the second part of the code I think is pretty awful if I'm honest. You can get an auto advance over 6 inches and you can do it through models and terrain, but then you cannot shoot or charge. Again, I'll mention Wraiths as they can go through units already, but they don't have the stratagem anymore to advance and charge, so again an unneeded bit of code there. The only unit I think will hold any value to advancing without charging or shooting would be Scarabs, as they can act as a good screen, but they can also fly over units in terrain anyway, so I'm not sure. The Warlord trait associated with the code is a bit of a so-so trait, as our Necron HQs usually aren't the best in melee. However, we do have a few beat sticks, but in general we don't really want to be in a punch-up. The relic I find is garbage. The Solar Staff, okay, you remove an Overwatch, it could be useful in rare games, but really you could just upgrade the Staff of Light to much better options. Then lastly, the stratagem is actually one of the better stratagems, allowing for a unit except monsters and vehicles to gain deep strike for 1 command point, and as it's pre-game it can be used multiple times. So I do ask why they've given this alongside the translocation or beam ability. None of them are really a sure way of getting into combat. So as for the rating for the Nephrekh Dynasty, I'm going to go with a 2 out of 5. Okay, on to the melee code, which is the Novokh Dynasty. This code has an army-wide +1 to the charge rolls, which is fantastic in my opinion, especially if you deep strike with some Amphibian Destroyers, or use that Veil of Darkness relic on some Lich Guard. Even the Footslog in Wraiths will find this really useful. This part of the code is also available in the custom codes with Butchers, that's if you wanted to leave this code, but the second part of this code is also pretty good as well. In the first round of combat you gain an additional -1 AP in melee. So now Flayed ones are on -2 AP, Lich Guards with the Sword and Shield are now on -4 AP, Canoptic Spiders are also on -4 AP, even the Scarabs are getting -1 AP. It's got a real good use right across the board from the worst melee units to the best. Now even the Scorpion Destroyers with a -3 AP on the Threshers will remove a 6+ armor save from marine units because it's now a -4. Just the fact that Necrons are becoming more of a melee based army nowadays, this is one of our best codes. Now if you did want to ditch the Novokh Dynasty and go with Butchers, you could pair it up with Rad Reefed, but then you're going to sacrifice all the extras which we'll go through now. So the Warlord trait is Blood Fueled Fury, which causes mortal wounds to your enemy when you roll a 6 to wound. Now I'm not a fan of this trait if I'm honest. Our Warlords don't have many attacks in general. You're likely dropping a dice when you hit, then getting a 6 with whatever's left to wound. Maybe you might get 1, maybe not. I'd not take this trait personally. The relic is the Blood Scythe, which is basically a war scythe but 2 additional attacks, which kind of goes hand in hand with that Warlord trait I guess. Still think you've got better relic options to choose from. The stratagem is Blood Rights for 1 command point, and you give every model in the unit an extra attack. This one's big in my opinion. Use this on a max unit of flayed ones and pop this stratagem to fight again. Or use it with Lichguard and use a Disruption Field stratagem afterwards to gain a +1 to their strength, so an extra attack with Blood Rights and Strength 8 War Scythes. Pretty nice. If I'm going melee, this tends to be what I play. Unless my list is themed, then maybe I would go custom. So as for the rating for the Novokh Dynasty, I'd say it was a 5 out of 5. Next we have the Nihilakh Dynasty. Not really geared in any particular direction in terms of shooting and melee, but it has its uses. So everyone gains objective secured, and if it's a troop unit, they're going to count as double. So a 20-man warrior unit is going to have 40 models for the purposes of contesting an objective, which is pretty good. But this is used for units such as Scarab Swarms, as they're really easy to hide, really quick, and can pinch an objective from under your opponent's nose. Then they're a real pain to shift as you feel like you're wasting shots on them, even though they're 4 wounds base. Now you can take Eternal Conquerors for objective secured if you wanted to go customizing. There's an option there. Now the second part of the code is a bit so-so. The units in your own deployment that are targeted by attacks with a -1 AP weapon will turn the weapon into a 0 AP weapon. So this only works in your deployment zone, even though this dynasty is kind of built to leave your deployment zone and go take new territory up the board. It's also restricted to -1 AP weapons, which I kind of find weird. Why not just give us light cover perhaps, an extra -1 off the AP? Either way, you may be tempted to go custom and switch that part out. The Warlord trait allows your Warlord to fight first, which is usually pretty good. We don't have many methods in the Codex which allow us to fight first. We've got no Judiciars or any Librarians to do that sort of stuff for us. Now the relic is the Infinity Mantle. +1 to your Warlord save and a 6+ field and pen save on top of that. Now even Warlords with a 2+ armor save can make use of this, as it negates a point in AP that the opposing weapon may have. The stratagem can be very useful when planned correctly. It's Reclaim a Lost Empire, and it costs 1 command point, and it allows infantry units to fire the ranged weapons while still carrying out actions for your secondaries. So often in 40k you find you don't want to forgo your shooting to do an action, as you need to delete a unit that's a threat to you. So normally you're forced to miss out on trying to do an action, so you're making a lot of use with this when you're with your warriors and especially your immortals. I quite like the idea of the dynasty, but I've never seemed to be selecting it, so I'm going to go with 3-star rating for this one. Okay, on to the 5th dynasty in the list, which is the newest of them all, the Szarekhan Dynasty. They all get a 5+ Funo pain save against mortal wounds, which is situational. Sometimes it pops up and you'll find it hilarious, when ironically you're making 5+ Funo pain saves against your Death Guard friends. The code also grants each unit a single reroll to wound when they're shooting or fighting, but this is really restricting you to a more elite force, as a single reroll to wound for a big blob of warriors isn't really making much difference. But allowing your Locust Heavy Destroyer to get a reroll could be huge. Superior Artisans in the custom codes is also the same ability, which allows you to reroll 1 wound roll, so if you wanted to go custom, that's your option there. The Warlord trait is Triarch's Will, which will allow you to ditch your command protocol that you don't really want to use, and instead you'll use one of the good ones twice in the battle. Now it's no secret I'm not a fan of command protocols. I really hate that you need to pre-assign them for each battle round before the game. You can plan this of course, but things don't always go to plan. However, the Warlord trait acts as a failsafe, as you can use 2 rounds in a row to almost ensure you're going to get to use it within the game, at the right time of course. The relic is Sovereign Coronal, which is a 3-inch extension to the range of the command protocols for your characters, so now they've got a 9-inch aura instead of a 6-inch. Also, core units that are within that 9-inch will gain both directives of the given protocol. That part's a little bit iffy, but there are ways of making this really work. The stratagem Empiric Damping for 1 command point allows you to deny a psychic power on a 4+, which doesn't count as the deny the witch test. So it's really useful when you're playing psycho heavy factions such as Tyranids, putting Catalyst on a full unit of Gene Stealers. That's a real pain in the butt. So on a 4+, that's gone. The code in particular has a character dedicated to the code, which is the Silent King. Now he doesn't gain the abilities from the code, but he can use the stratagem, and you can combo him up with other dynasties, as he's got his own detachment, which is the Supreme Command Detachment, so you're not fully restricted. So admittedly I don't really use this code as much as others, so in fact I've probably got the least experience with this code out of all of the codes, but from my own experiences I'm going to rate this a 3 out of 5. Now this rating may cause a bit of conflict in the comments, but let me know where you'd place them. Okay, on to the final dynasty, which is my preferred code, which is the Sautekh Dynasty. I just love the old school silver look, reminds me of the old Terminator films with those T-100 robots. So the code allows us to reroll a morale test, which is a bit so-so if I'm honest. If you're going to fail a morale test, you're likely going to fail it with the reroll as well, so it only comes in handy on those one-off occasions where you accidentally roll a 6 when you need a 5 or less. The second part of the code is allowing rapid fire weapons to double tap at 18-inch range. Now this one affects only a few units, warriors, immortals, tomb blades. Then you could add the royal warden and the 2 arcs as well with the ghost weaponry. Now arguably the Mephrit code is better as you gain 3 inches, which puts your flays at 27 inch, so half of that is 14 when you round it up. Immortals with the ghost blasters are now going to get a 33 inch with that Mephrit code, which is 17 inches at rapid fire, so that example you only actually lose 1 inch compared to the Sautekh code. Now with the Sautekh code you don't get the extra AP like the Mephrit code, but it does allow you to stay a little bit further back. It does unfortunately also funnel you to the Ghost Flayers instead of the better option, which is the Ghost Reapers, because those Reapers are not rapid fire. Now the Warlord trait is pretty good, which is Hyperlogical Strategist. When you spend a command point on a stratagem, on a 5+, you get your command point back. Now I always take this even if I need to spend a command point on selecting a second Warlord trait with verified nobility. Remember you can use this on every stratagem, even in your opponent's turn. Yes, you only gain 1 CP back per turn, but if you use say 3 stratagems in a battle round, on average you're going to get 1 refunded. The relic is Vanquisher's Mask, a bit of an odd one for a shooty army that likes to stay their distance. It makes the enemy units that are within engagement range of the bearer fight last. Now I do like the relic, but I just prefer it in a different dynasty if I'm honest. Now the stratagem is fantastic. It's methodical destruction, it's 2 command points, but when you fire at an enemy unit, you can now effectively tag it so that all other units in the dynasty will get a +1 to hit that given unit. Now this doesn't stack with mine will be done unless you've got a negative modifier to your hit roll. Also I love that the dynasty happens to have its own unique characters, so you've got Imhotep the Stormlord, Nemesis Andrek and Vargard Oberon. All of them have their own uses. Now Imhotep is a clear winner here as he's a better overlord, but none of the named guys can hold relics or resurrection orbs, which sometimes sucks. So now even though this is my beloved dynasty, it's not the strongest by a long shot. So I'm going to be giving the Sautekh Dynasty a 2-star rating. I would put them ahead of the Nephrekh Dynasty at present because I just think they suck at the moment. So guys, that's the final tier list and how it looks when we put all 6 together. The custom dynasties have really shaken up a lot of these as a good alternative. Let me know how you rate all 6 below. And also guys, if you've enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe below and like the video on your exits. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you next time.